And welcome back for more Firebase. We're going to cover search. So I get this question all the time. People are asking, so you've got your Firebase data, your big Firebase collections. How do you search? Let's say you've got a list of users. How do you search by the username? Well, Firebase provides some basic query functionality, but frankly, it's just not enough. Like if you want to be able to do really detailed search, you've got we've got two good options at this point, of which I'm aware. I'm sure there's other stuff out there. But your best option right now is probably Elasticsearch or Algolia. Now, Algolia is a paid search solution. It's awesome, but you got to pay for it. They've got a free tier, but you end up paying for it. Elasticsearch, I mean, you got to pay for the server. You got to keep the server running somehow, but just like any other service. But it's basically it's open. It should be open source. It's open source. You can do whatever you want with it. So I use Elasticsearch, but I've heard really, really good things about Algolia, and I may use them on a future project. We'll see. Their search response times are incredible, and it's so easy to set up. Anyway, so this takes us down to the basic idea behind searching your Firebase collections is that you've got to mirror your Firebase collections in Elasticsearch or Algolia or some other search solution. I'm just going to focus on Elasticsearch and Algolia. Now, the idea is you're going to mirror certain collections in these indices, and then you basically have a searchable index either in Elasticsearch or Algolia. So people have been asking me about how do you do this for a while, and I've always just sort of said, oh yeah, you just use Elasticsearch or Algolia. The rest is obvious. Well, it's not obvious. It's actually a pain in the neck to do. So I've gone ahead and written a small library here, a little object I call Firebase Search. And Firebase Search, it's a Node. It works in Node. And this is the code for it. It's not huge. It's mostly proxying Elasticsearch and Algolia functions to the user, and then using them internally to listen to Firebase changes and reflect them in Elasticsearch or Algolia. Got all my tests passing yesterday, so pretty excited. Wrote the README. Should all be set up at this point. So, got a little demo here. I'd like to walk you through the demo. Okay, the first step. Elasticsearch is really easy to set up. The first step is setting up. Scratch that. Algolia is very easy to set up. You basically just sign up and get API keys from them. Elasticsearch is a little trickier. You actually have to create an Elasticsearch instance and connect to it. Now, how are you going to connect to it? I create mine using Cloud Launcher on Google Cloud Platform. Pretty straightforward to create it, but then you've got to actually access it. It's behind a firewall. So then I use tunneling to get directly to it so I can use it off a local host. So how do I tunnel? Well, if you put your Elasticsearch details into an env.json file in this my Firebase Search.js repo and run this, it'll give you your tunnel commands. This is how I'm going to tunnel. So I'm going to use gcloud to SSH tunnel to my localhost 9200 port. So there we go. Okay, we got a tunnel running. How do we know we have a tunnel running? Because when I hop over here, there we go. I get data when I hit my localhost 9200. So if I hit the top level localhost 9200, I obviously have a Elasticsearch instance, so I can now access it off a localhost. So it's off. I've generated that already off a Cloud Launcher, and it's way behind a firewall, totally inaccessible to the world unless you got a tunnel running. So I got my tunnel running for local testing. You can get a tunnel running on your local server or your VPS, whatever you're running this on. All right. So I also have an Algolia account with my API keys that you are not going to see, but are all stashed away in an env.json file. Okay, here we've got the repo as it stands today, and I've got my Firebase real-time database that I'm using here. Okay, so demo. I pull in Firebase Search. Well, in Firebase, I'm using Axios and Lodash for the demo purposes. You may not need them. I initialize my Firebase using a database URL and a service account, and I create a ref. In this case, it's going to be demo/users, so the same ref you see here in the browser. Okay, my Elasticsearch config requires a host, in this case localhost 9200, a log level, you don't need a log level, but log level warning, and you got to name an index. I'm going to call my index development. So you'll see over here, if I go here and go /development, we've got a live index, and I've already saved some data to it. So yeah. All right, next we've got Algolia config. Here's a sample in the comment. I'm not actually going to show you my API keys because that'd be stupid. But trust that they look something like this. Application ID, some other goodies. Okay, all you got to do to create your Firebase Search object at this point is pass in a ref, pass in an object that's got your Elasticsearch and Algolia attributes with your configs, and then a name. You don't actually have to put a name in. It'll create a default name for you, but I like to have nice, clean names, so I'm going to call this users. So we're going to have these fake users, and they're going to be tracked with the users ref. And yeah, I'm going to enable Elasticsearch and Algolia. Now, if I commented out Algolia, the Algolia functionality to Firebase Search would be gone. Likewise, if I commented out Elasticsearch and gave myself back Algolia, I just have Algolia's functionality. So you've got, if you include a spec for something, you then get the functionality for that on Firebase Search. Otherwise, it blocks it out because you would never actually want to have it. Okay, so I'm just going to run a quick demo here. What does this demo do? So first, it takes this search that I created, Firebase Search, I'm just calling it search, and says it lists out the indices from Elasticsearch, checks to see if the index exists, so the index that's spec'd out here, it checks to see if a development exists. If it exists, then we're going to delete it, otherwise we just return true out of that promise. Then we're going to create a new one, so we're just going to wipe the index. Then we're going to go do the same thing for Algolia. See, does Algolia exist? Does the index exist? If it exists, okay, if it exists, we're going to, I have it a little backwards there. If it exists, we're going to clear the index. If it doesn't exist, we're going to set the settings on it. In this case, my settings are just attributes to index, name, and gender. If you set any settings, it'll create the index for you. So this is a quick way to just create an index from scratch without actually putting any records in. And if you just push records to an index, it'll create them for you. But in this case, I just want to create it. So at this point, we've got a fresh Elasticsearch index and a fresh Algolia index. So we're going to call search.elasticsearch.firebase.start and search.elasticsearch.algolia.firebase.start. That starts the listeners. So all changes to my Firebase ref will now be mirrored in Elasticsearch and Algolia. And I've got an event listener on my search. It listens to all events. There are a bunch of different events you can listen to. Basically, child added, child changed, and child removed for Elasticsearch and Algolia. Or this all event, so you can just log it out. It's for debugging mostly. So I'm just going to debug it so you can see it. As Firebase Search notices changes and syncs up the changes, we'll log those changes out right here. Okay, so we'll just return true out of this promise. Then we're going to clean out the ref, just in case there's any data sitting out there. Download 5 users from the Star Wars API. Use Axios to grab those and push them up to the users ref. All right, so those all end up in users, and I was playing around with saving them to a disk. You don't need to save them to disk, whatever. And then I'm going to push a new user from this Star Wars API every second, every 1,000 millis. Okay, so we'll push one every second so you can see it in action. And you'll get the logs as Firebase Search keeps things in sync. Now notice, once you got the indices set up, all I had to call was the 2 start functions, and now it's just going to listen. Now you got stop functions as well if you got to stop, but why would you ever stop? Just start listening once and you're good. Okay, so Let's hop over to Hyperterm. We've got our tunnel running. We've got our Elasticsearch up. I've got all the config done for Algolia. Let's open up a new tab here. Okay, and we're going to say node. Let's do nodemon demo.js. Okay, now watch what happens here. Actually, let's do it under here. Nodemon demo. There. So you don't actually need to see it. And we can watch it in the browser, watch things change. Okay, so here's our console. Currently it's empty. Let's shrink this just a little bit. Clear it. Okay, node demo.js. Okay, run that. Okay, what's happening? We're clearing the indices, and now we're going to start adding. So you'll see every second we're getting a new user, up to 5. So we got all 5 users loaded, and you'll see that they all got synced. Now Elasticsearch is a little faster. It's actually more closer to synchronous. Elasticsearch will sync your stuff up very, very quickly. Algolia takes a little while. It says, hey, I'll get it done in my own time. It's still just a second or so, but you'll notice that I ran through all the records, and then there were a couple sort of lagging Algolia child added events that got thrown. But now we got C3PO, R2D2, and Luke Skywalker. All right, so now hop on over here. We're going to have to refresh this page because Algolia is only partially real time. All right. Development users search. There we go. Okay, so we've got our 5 users. Leia, we got Princess Leia. Who else do we have? R2D2, all these fun people. So I can run my own queries off of here, like this. Q equals name Leia. Do we get it? Hey, we get Leia. So we can find Leia. Now over here in Algolia, let's switch over to users. We've got 4 records. Huh, looks like we may have missed one somehow. Elasticsearch, we added 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Algolia added 1, 2, 3, 4. So because we only have 4 records. Huh, thought we had more. All right, we have 4 records. And you'll see we can search for Leia, and we get Leia. Okay, so pretty straightforward. Hit me up with any questions in the comments. I'll probably write up a post on exactly how to do this. It's all actually should be really well spec'd out in the README, including all the config, getting your credentials, configuring Elasticsearch, configuring Algolia, which as you can see here is a 2-liner. You sign up for Algolia and copy your API keys. I've got all the testing running, and I've got example usage for all of the functions and events that I'm exposing on this object. So, yeah, maybe I'll cover some more if I have questions on this, but this should get you running with Search and Elasticsearch and Algolia and make your Firebase a lot easier to manage. All right, thanks for listening.